I'm going to call the Monday, May 19th, 2025 regular meeting of the Jersey Shore Area School District Board of School Directors to order. May I have a roll call, please, Mr. Enders?
Mr. Allen. Present. Mr. Bringard.
Here.
Mr. Calhoun.
Here.
Ms. Edwards.
Here.
McDonald.
Here.
Mr. Peters.
Here.
Berman.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas. Here. Mrs. Stenley.
Here.
All 9 members.
Thank you. Next, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Ulmer.
I'm going to recognize Dr. Battaglia to introduce some of our middle school students.
I'd like to introduce Abram Bauer to lead the pledge for us tonight. He and Adeline Cupp were selected as our junior Rotarians from the middle school. Adeline was supposed to be here tonight also, but was unable to join us at the last minute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mom might want one. Next, we're going to have approval of the minutes. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the treasurer's report. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Any questions or concerns?
In regards to the investment report, just like to point out to the board, we did 3 investments this past month. The second March investment got pushed over into the beginning of April. That's why there was 3. We continue to see upside down interest rates, meaning short-term rates are better than long-term rates. So we're continuing our CD ladder doing 12-month rate, 4.18%, and we're taking the opportunity and doing the short-term rate at 3 months for 4.43%. We are doing that again in May. We did CDs today, and I have them with me for the officers to sign tonight. Do that again in May.
Any questions for Mr. Enders? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the bills. May I have a motion, please?
Motion. Second.
Any questions or concerns?
In regards to the bills, they are a little bit higher than a normal month. However, the $1 million, two $500,000 CDs I just referenced that we did at the end of April, they're with Journey Bank, who require checks. But that's why there's an extra $1 million in monthly bills. Other than that, the bills are pretty normal. The Sugar Valley Burger School April invoice was $102,300.
Any questions for Mr. Enders? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to communications, Dr. Ulmer.
Nothing under communications for this evening.
Under the President's report, we had an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel. And I also wanted to make, and the contract negotiations for that executive session. For tonight, I wanted to make a correction under finance, letter H, finance, and under finance, it's also letter H. We're adding the words up to, so the purchase of Journey's reading curriculum for the 2025-26 school year at the cost of up to $53,699. So I wanted to make that known. And that is everything. So moving on to the board representative committee reports. Jesse.
I have a meeting on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Mr. Brungard?
I really don't have anything, except I guess the surveying in that Salzburg is now in process, so be a while to make this back to us, and then we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. Student representative report.
I have no report.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Ulmer.
I'm going to start by recognizing Mr. Mincer, who is going to recognize our winter sport athletes who qualified for state level competition.
Okay, we'll start off with the swimming, since I see one of our swimmers here. Oh, okay, yeah. All right, so we had 4 kids qualify for states in swimming this year. 4 of them in a relay. The medley relay was the district champions. So they were Kate Butzler, Erilyn Kimball, who's here, Brooke Charney, and Reese Charney. So Erilyn, would you come on up so we can give you a certificate? Kate and Reese also qualified in individual events. Reese in the 50 and the 100 back, and then Kate in the 100 backstroke. And then we also have our girls basketball team here, who are the PHAC champions again, and they also qualified for states. Is this 3 years in a row? 3 years in a row. This is for the 3rd straight year. And is this 3 for the PHAC? I know we won the last 2, so it's 3 years that we won the PHAC as well. So very accomplished team. So Coach, I'm going to call up Coach Shaw and Coach Hess so they can help distribute these and call the girls out. I don't know if that's everybody. Nope. 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 They're in my order.
Do you want to do that?
I can do that.
Well, let's do it when she comes up.
Yeah. All right, we'll do that one separately.
Hold our applause till the end.
Okay.
Thank you all for taking the time out of your normal agenda to recognize swim and anybody else that's here. We'll go youngest to oldest and see how well represented we are. I appreciate all you girls and families coming out to the meeting. We'll go with freshmen first. I see Riley Eck. And you can just kind of line up across there. Ava Smith. Bella Hensler. Gracelyn Franz. Aslyn Guerrero. Emma Dady. I think that's all the freshmen. this year's 10th graders, Aslan Dincher, Lily Bowers, Kylie Shaw, so we had Taylor Heaton, who is also a 10th grader. We had a junior, Avery DePasquale. I know how to say it. And then we had 4 seniors. All 4 of our seniors are going on to college. Some of them are going to go to college to play sports. So we'll point her out last. So we have Kaylin Shaw, senior. And the group acknowledgement and group effort is obvious with result. These young ladies represent their families and all of us very well with work habits, work ethic, and that leads to something. Individual acknowledgement that's kind of another level that we experienced in basketball this year. In the last 4 years, I don't know what the history of the school is. I do know this, Peyton Dincher is the all-time leading points scorer, boys or girls, this year's class of 2025.
Not done. One more. He was also named first team All-State for the 3rd time this year. And she is also our only representative on the first team All-State basketball team.
Ladies, again, thank you for coming, and I thank everybody here for their support. It's awesome.
Hey there, we're gonna get a picture. Congratulations, ladies.
And next I'm going to introduce Mr. Chris Lahr, who is here tonight to recognize our indoor guard competitors.
Thank you, Dr. Omer. Board, we appreciate you taking the time to recognize the hard work of these young ladies. Just a little bit of backstory. This is a relatively new but yet not new activity to the school district. We did have an indoor color guard for quite some time under the tutelage of Jeff Dent when he was the director at the high school. We brought this program back about 8 years ago. 8 years ago, and today before you, you're going to see champions in that activity. So Tournament Indoor Association is a marching arts organization that services 8 states. Every spring they have a Tournament Indoor Association Atlantic Coast Championships in Wildwood, New Jersey. And for the very first time in program history, the Guard, who participated in the Scholastic Novice class, came out on top with a score of 92.57. And were first place out of 23 groups in those 8 states. So I'm going to start, and I guess go ahead. Yep, let's get around here. So this group of young ladies is an 8 through 12 ensemble, and there are 12 of them. So I'm going to kind of take the lead of the sports folks, and I'm going to start with our 8th graders. And we have 1 or 2 that are not able to be with us tonight. So we have Autumn Lauer. senior stoneboard. There you go. Malia Heverly. Ella Mitchell is a 9th grader. Our 10th graders, Allie Dracham, who could not be here with us this evening, and Alana Green. Our 11th graders are Savannah Kramer, who also could not be here with us this evening. Oh. Before we get to 11th grade, though, let's go back to 10th grade at Teagan Hall. If you wouldn't have reminded me, you could have been a senior. Now to 11th grade, Savannah Kramer, who could not be with us tonight, and Briar Cohen. And then our senior class of Laurel Deemers. Emily Eisner. Jocelyn Cunningham. And Abigail Schaefer. Thanks for that. They brought with you tonight to present the championship banner, which has already been hung and will be hung again with all of the other championship athletic banners in our high school gym. If you want to show the board first, and then we can get a shot out here. And just a quick note, our 4 seniors here are also pursuing post-secondary education after they leave the halls of Jersey Shore High School. During the season, Jocelyn was noted as a Performer of the Week in Tournament Indoor Association, and we're very excited to have Abby Schaefer coming back to Guard Tech with Coach Tyler for the fall season. Somebody's got one for me, right? Thank you so much again for your time. That's it.
Cleared the house out. Wow.
I'm going
Three-
to go ahead
three
and
people here
recognize Mr. Chad Crate. While he's getting set up, you all have at your seat a piece of paper that looks like this that Mr. Crate is going to review for us. If you remember, some of you will remember this background. We had this conversation a number of years ago when we started this process and making sure that we were able to afford district technology without impacting hugely our annual budget. I asked Mr. Crate to come tonight to explain kind of his forward-thinking plan on what we're going to do with that money and making sure we are able to afford the technology, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Crate to explain.
Thank you, Dr. Ulmer. I'd be lying if I was kind of disappointed because I thought they were all here to hear me talk about my iPads. So it's going to be hard to follow that, but we'll do the best we can. So like Dr. Ulmer said, you should have what's on the screen in front of you. Essentially what you're looking at is a color-coded diagram for what I hope to be the next 5 years of iPad purchasing within the district. So to give you a little bit of a background on the reason to come up with this plan, as all of you know, during COVID, we essentially bought our iPads by the building. So we replaced the elementary school, we replaced the middle school, and so forth. So what that did was that essentially left us with gaps and kind of painted us into a corner. I mean, that's what everybody did to refresh their technology. That's not it's not an outlandish thing to do. But what that did was, now that we need to refresh our technology from year to year as we're going forward to make sure that we stay current, that kind of paints us into having to replace them in the same schedule. So we would essentially have to replace the entire elementary school in one shot, which is not, planning-wise, the easiest thing to do, because, as I'm sure you understand, technology is not cheap. And it kind of paints a moving target for us in technology, because obviously those students have now moved. Like, they have moved up in their grade levels, 1 year, 2 year, 4 years. So what this does is it creates a 5-year life cycle for those devices. And our plan is to replace each year kindergarten, 5th grade, and 9th grade. So what that does is essentially that lets us paint over those years to maintain the technology age for those students. And like I said, so on this, I've kind of color-coded it. For 24-25, you see that we replaced all of the elementary school in green, and you can kind of see how that green fades into the next years. So next year, I'm actually hoping to replace kindergarten and 9th grade and not 5th grade. So we're gonna kind of phase into this and not do 5th grade because they already have that updated device. So obviously those 5th graders will go to 6th grade, so we'll move into the middle school. 4th grade will go to 5th grade, so on. So 26-27 would be the first year that we would actually fully implement this plan. We would replace kindergarten, 5th grade, and 9th grade. And then, so that would be in yellow, and you can kind of see that 5-year, 4-year, because I didn't go out 5 years, but it does continue out. Now, the next question that I'm sure is on your mind is, what happens to the devices that get replaced? So those devices will be either turned into spares. I know it's hard to believe, but these students do break an iPad or two throughout the year. And of course, there are things that happen to them. Charging ports go bad, buttons go bad, things like that. So it's a good idea to have those spares on hand. For the graduating seniors, those devices will either turn into spares, or we can then turn those around and use them as additional devices within the district. Whatever the need may be, we could turn them into STEM devices to use in our science programs, whatever we need to do with them. If we have a surplus, we do have an opportunity to then sell those devices at to a reseller or something like that, with your approval, of course. And then we would actually use those funds to actually go towards the purchase of devices in the following year. And one of the other things that I wanted to mention, and I forgot to, so as of next year, you see at the bottom under the 12th grade that the replacement of the 7th grade devices will be with senior devices and staff reclaimed devices. The reason that I taking it back another step, the reason that I said it kind of painted us into a corner was that if you see the high school for 9th grade of this year and moving forward, those devices, if we don't purchase 9th grade next year, will be very, very uncomfortably close to the end of their life cycle. Which in common terms, like, they're not gonna get updates, which may seem like a menial thing. In our world, that's huge. So if they don't get the security updates, that puts us in a vulnerability, and I don't wanna do that. That's not something that I'm interested in doing. So that's the reason for purchasing that 9th grade next year. And then if you look at 26-27, we're gonna replace the 11th graders with the 5th graders. Again, replacing those devices that are getting uncomfortably close, at least for me, to their life cycle ending. And we're bringing those updated devices back into the high school until we can actually get a full wave across. Hopefully, I didn't confuse, and I made that make sense. So if anybody has any specific questions.
I have one.
Sure.
I guess the kindergarten up there, I think I have it on.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know how they are used or why we would put iPads in the hands of kindergarten kids. And I just don't know how they're being used. Are they used as a curriculum? Maybe it's not your choice to answer that, but maybe somebody could.
So what I will say is, I've heard that question, and I actually already started surveying our teachers by grade level. So you're gonna get a report from me that shows amount of time, what apps they're using, and for what purpose.
At the kindergarten and first grade.
All grade, like
All grades.
K to 5, I already asked that question. Because I knew when we had this conversation, that was gonna come up, so you'll be getting that information as well.
I'll wait.
One of the other things I want to make sure, we had this conversation before, but I know with new board members, you may not have heard this conversation. Part of what's happening here is you have committed funds for future technology purchases because we were able to make purchases in the last 5 years using ESSER funds. So we were protecting district local tax dollars and committing them to future technology purchases with the understanding that when we make these purchases, we're going into that committed fund and using it rather than taking it out of your annual budget. So what Chad is showing you is where those devices are going to go from that committed fund over time, and also the conversation about if there is resale value going back into that committed fund or using it for a purchase we're making at the time so that we're protecting local budget. Other questions?
Chad, you mentioned life cycle a couple of times. What do you consider life cycle?
So, in the world of technology, that is.
I'm
up
talking
in-
about the iPad now.
No, I
The
know,
world
I
of
know,
technology
I know.
can be 5
Yeah.
days.
Oh, yeah. It actually changed while we were having this conversation, Mary. So normally on an iPad, they say 6 years. We've pushed them farther than that. They start to really kind of degrade in performance. So I'm comfortable with a 5-year. They remain current enough. They maintain their speed after 5. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay,
So it's
thanks.
yeah.
Any other questions?
I'll wait till we get your report.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Thank you.
And then I'm going to move on to Dr. Battaglia, who is here tonight to discuss EF tours. If you recall, a couple months ago, Deb Bressler, a teacher in the high school, was here to talk about EF tours, and you approved a tour for high school students at the subsequent meeting. Dr. Battaglia is here tonight to talk about EF tour opportunities for middle school students. And there is attached to your agenda tonight a handout that Dr. Battaglia has got from EF Tours that somewhat mirrors what you saw from the high school presentation a couple months ago. So go ahead.
Yeah, so like Dr. Ulmer said, when Mrs. Bressler presented a few months ago, EF Tours is not a new program to Jersey Shore School District. What I would like to do, though, is expand it so that we can offer global learning opportunities to our middle school students as well. When I surveyed the middle school staff to see who might be interested in leading an EF Tours group, I had 8 staff members who are interested in being a group leader or being a chaperone. So when I realized that, I think that we have the potential to have a real successful travel program here at the middle school as well. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I just want to highlight a couple points and things that I've witnessed in my own life. In my previous life, before I was working at Jersey Shore, I was a Girl Scout volunteer for many, many years. I see what travel can do and how it can benefit young adolescents, and so I want to bring that to our students as well. It says, I think it's page 4 of the handout, the learning outcomes. It raises cultural awareness for students, and I think that's something that everyone can benefit from. It increases levels of collaboration. It helps students with communication skills, whether that's learning another language or not, or just being able to communicate with people from outside of Jersey Shore and possibly outside the country. It broadens a growth mindset in our students. They become more self-aware because they have to kind of be more independent as they're traveling. And it builds a sense of agency. It allows students to kind of get to know themselves and what they can handle. So the outcomes and the benefits to students are those and more, I would say. If we continue on, staff have the potential to receive professional learning credits. At the high school age, there's a potential for graduation credits. Of course, that doesn't apply to our middle school students. We currently have a plan, if you approve of adding this, we have a plan for 3 trips to begin in spring of 2027. The first trip that we'd like to take goes to Rome and Pompeii over spring break of 2027. The following year, we'd like to go to the middle school program From Pirates to Present in Panama. And then in 2029, possibly going to Greece. What I learned in working with and meeting the representatives from EF Tours is they have tours that are specific to middle school students. I know it seems a little bit scary to imagine 12 to 14-year-olds traveling outside of the country, but these tours that they offer are specifically geared towards middle school students, hands-on learning opportunities, hikes, outdoor adventures in all of these different places. Excuse me. EF offers payment plans, fundraising opportunities, grants and scholarships, a risk-free enrollment period if a family signs up and then they change their mind for whatever reason, there is a chance to get out of the commitment without losing any money. EF is a safe organization. They're known for having representatives all over the world if there is any kind of emergency. I have no qualms or fears about safety when partnering with EF. There are protection plans, insurance policies that protect students, that protects the district, the board, all kinds of releases. So logistically, the spring break tour of 2027 that we'd like to take to Rome and Pompeii, if we start taking commitments for those in the early fall of next school year, the cost per student would be $4,109 with a monthly payment of $183 for 22 months. So if you approve of adding this program, we'd like to kick that off in October so that we give families the most amount of time to make payments, comfortable payments, so that they can send their kids on these tours.
Question?
yeah,
Go
go ahead.
Does
No, it's
anybody
fine.
have any questions at this point?
I do. I just wanted to know if you were targeting this towards incoming 6th graders this year so that they will go then in 9th grade or 8th grade?
So if we do a fall of 2025 kickoff, we'd be targeting 5th, 6th, and 7th graders. So when the tour actually takes place, we would be taking 6th through 8th graders.
When you say spring break, which is fine, but how many days are we looking at on the average here?
I believe it is an 8-day tour. Let me go back to that page.
Breakdown must be
Requested travel dates, March 20th to March 27th of 2027. So somewhere in that window.
Okay.
And combined with spring break, students would miss 2 to 3 academic days.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is EF?
Education first.
Oh, thank you.
global-based, travel-based learning program.
Do the kids that travel, do they have to be in a certain academic standing, or is it just open to all, or?
It would be open to anybody that could afford to participate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are parents able to go with their kids?
Absolutely. The required ratio of chaperones to students is 6 students to 1 chaperone. So that's the required ratio. What I learned from talking to the reps is that oftentimes with middle school students, families will choose to attend as a chaperone as well. So 6 to 1 is the minimum, but it typically ends up being higher than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How many are you talking about taking on one of these trips?
As many as possible. Yeah, I
What are you
mean,
gonna do about the poor little boy that can't afford it? He wants to go so bad. Have you considered that, I'm sure?
there are scholarship opportunities through EF, possibly through the foundation we could apply for. There are fundraising opportunities. So and if we push it out and can take signups for 2 years, we're hoping that by doing that, the payment is manageable for as many families as possible.
All right.
By the time we take the tour, it would be 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, all middle school students.
Any other questions?
Come on along as a chaperone. The more the merrier.
You do have to vote on this as a board, similar to what we did before. This will be on the next agenda for a vote so that we know whether or not we can start moving forward with planning. Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to be voting on that we can do the EF tours, or we're going to be voting on the first trip?
You would be the first trip is what you would be approving. that
Okay,
we-
so the other ones will come after.
Yeah, you
Okay.
would have to approve each trip.
Individually, okay.
Individually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe like, so I guess my question, that's okay, you're fine. I was just kind of thinking like outside the box, so if you have a 5th grader, they could potentially go to all.
They could. Yes, if we did them every year, they could potentially go to all 3. Save up your money. I did see that the 6-for-1 chaperone is free.
Chaperones are free?
For every 6 students, there's one paid chaperone.
That's through the tour company.
Yes. Yes. You signing up?
Where do I?
Also, under my report, there are board policies attached and job descriptions as I continue to work on job descriptions. All of those board policies contain legal edits. We are not voting on those tonight. They are there simply for you to read them. If you have questions about those policies, please let me know prior to the next meeting when we would do a first read. And finally, on my agenda, or on my presentation tonight, I didn't put this on the agenda. I want to recognize that I have in my hand the first ever Pennsylvania Heartland Athletic Conference Lifetime Pass that was awarded a couple weeks ago to Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you. Just a little history. I was the first president of this league when it first started. So instead of having a 2-year term, I had a 3-year term. And it's different when you start a big league like that.
Congratulations.
That's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Ulmer. There is no one signed up for the first courtesy of the floor, so we will move on to personnel. Items to approve, A through M. May I have a motion, please?
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. There's nothing under curriculum and instruction. Under buildings and grounds, approving letter A. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion. Somebody else should say something. Second? Good. So on second.
Any questions or concerns?
Is
I
this-
know we talked about this a little bit. Is this a district thing, or is it like it's gonna be high school, gonna be middle school?
This will be at Avis Elementary, and that was specifically identified based on location. We did talk about this a number of months ago, and then I hadn't heard back from them because they were working through all of the sites. But essentially what this is if you watch the local weather TV stations, every once in a while they'll say, here's the weather at this specific place. And so once this is fully installed, you will see occasionally, this is the weather specifically right now at Avis Elementary. And it was identified based on where in the state there are current sites. And then there was a hole in the state that there wasn't any around. These typically are placed at schools, and I think I said this to somebody last week, and when you see it, it's typically at a school. But also just note that it is self-contained. Like there's no cost to you. They're not using your electricity. It's a self-contained system. Has a has a solar panel, so it's running itself. They're able to sync you're basically agreeing to let them put it there and then access it to maintain it.
The one that sell?
There's not.
That was the gas thing.
That's an air quality monitoring
Okay,
station
that's what I was
through
thinking
DEP.
All right.
Is this gonna be like on the roof?
Nope,
Or in
it
the
will be in
field?
the yard when you pull into the front entrance to Avis. It will be to the right of the parking lot.
I have a question. It has a viewing camera?
I don't think they have cameras.
Okay.
It's like current temperature, if
Right,
it's
that would give a
precipitating.
location. I didn't know if it had a
recall
viewing
ever
camera.
seeing what, they might have a picture of the site when it's on the screen, but I don't know that they do live camera footage.
Hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion
Opposed.
passes. Somebody opposed? Jesse.
I don't know enough about it.
Okay. The motion does still pass. Thank you. Moving on to finance, items to approve. Letters A through I. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns?
We have a little bit more information on B and C, and just the word amendment kind of gets me like, were there changes to it, or is it just?
So amendment 4 and 5 refer to your current agreements that were an amendment to the original GISA contract. These two are invoices is how they're worded. Invoices for the current under work projects that are in place.
Any other questions?
I just have one. For the Journeys curriculum. The only thing that I asked Dr. Omer, and so we're going to use this for this 1 year.
This would give us another year and give us time to determine our next steps.
Okay. The only thing that I ask is for a stronger curriculum for reading comprehension. Maybe something with, I mean, obviously, like something with maybe phonics, daily reading, that kind of, that's all I request. Thank you.
But we have a separate phonics curriculum, right?
We do have a separate ECRI curriculum with phonics routines now, yes.
Right. But aren't we in other school districts like way behind on reading? Like it's not, like, that's something like where a skill set that we need, though, is my point. Like even like currently what we have though, Mary, like we need something maybe a little bit geared towards that direction since everybody is, behind. COVID didn't help, is my point.
Okay, define everybody is behind. What data do we have on that?
I think if you ask our teachers, the ECRI routines are helping.
Yeah.
We are seeing growth in K1 too, because that's where those routines are being done. But one of the things that we want to look at is making sure whatever we put in place works with those ECRI routines, because we want to make sure that what they're doing in phonics every day is able to translate over into what they're reading in their English language arts curriculum.
Okay.
So that's an important component of what we choose to do next.
Okay. I think that's kind of where I was going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ben, are you going to review the?
So at your seats also is this document that you saw in Mr. Andrews' previous presentation, which I gave you again to illustrate the rebalance rates. If you remember, I'll go back to 23-24, which is you see 25-26 all the way to the right. Go back 2 years to 23-24. When we said we were going to rebalance, what that did was no increase to Lycoming County and a decrease to Clinton County based on property values. In the previous year, we did raise taxes in 22-23, but go back one more to 21-22, we rebalanced. There was no increase to Clinton County. There was a decrease to Lycoming County based on property values. So I want to make sure you understand as a board, and chime in anytime, Mr. Andrews, that when you rebalance, there could be, and one of the things that he pointed out to you was there will be an increase to one and a decrease to the other. Am I saying that correctly? Okay. That has alternated over time, and you see
Right.
that on this report.
So it's not, and you don't have it listed for for 25, 26. So can you just give us the numbers again? If we rebalance this year, Clinton, I think, goes up and Lycoming comes down a little bit, but can you just?
Yeah, one was 459 and
Around the same as the other.
so Lycoming County dollars per 100,000. Lycoming County goes down $4.92. Clinton County goes up $5.49.
Okay.
So there's one more piece to this puzzle, and that's Homestead Farmstead. So Homestead Farmstead, we have an increase in our Homestead Farmstead of $161,232.39. We're getting $1.85 million in Homestead Farmstead. That, and I don't have final assessed values, so these rates will change slightly, but this is a ballpark figure where they'll be. The value of it is about $406 for 25-26 versus $377.72 last year. So we're looking at an increase of about $29, $28. So with rebalancing, that little increase to Clinton County. But that is counteracted by the increase in Homestead Farmstead. A Clinton County parcel that was either homestead or farmstead eligible, or they can be both. The assessed value of that parcel would have to be $514,700 for it to see any type of tax increase. Anything below that value would see a decrease in their tax bill from last year.
Thank you.
You know how much lower Lyco Cummings would go down then?
Well, it's going to be per 100,000. It will be the $5 plus the $3 change homestead farmstead.
Okay.
So it's about $45 per 100,000.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to miscellaneous, items to approve, letters A through H. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, under old business, there is a request for a discussion on class size. So I'm going to let Mrs. Thomas go ahead and ask her questions.
There's enough for you, and you might already come.
I have a copy. I made copies, but it's fine.
Is there more to that than what I gave that you want them to have?
I printed historic so that they could see historic enrollment reports, but you can go ahead while I pass those out.
One of the things we've heard a lot about is class size, especially with closing the school. You know, people were afraid that the class sizes for their students are going to be 30 kids per class, 35 kids per class, which doesn't pan out. And I'm one that has always been interested in class sizes. So from time to time, when we get the usually monthly report on what the enrollment is in the district, I take a look at, spend some time on that. And this time, from the May 2nd report, I spent some time on looking at what's happening next year. Now, I didn't address kindergarten because at the time I did this, I didn't know kindergarten. Dr. Ulmer can fill you in on kindergarten at this point. But one of the things in closing the school, our goal was to go from 8 teachers per grade level to 7 teachers per grade level. And we felt that, I shouldn't say we. I felt that over time that can happen, and it can happen pretty quickly. So if we look at what would happen next year from the 5-2 enrollment, and obviously it changes every month. It's a little bit different. So these are approximately, but I would say that they're pretty close. So first grade next year, we would see, I'm going to round it off, 20 kids in JSE class and 19 kids in the AVIS class. which to me is right on target. Second grade, we have a problem from my perspective. We have 25 kids at JSE and only 19 kids at Avis. If we would change that from 5 teachers at JSE to a 6th teacher for the year, that would give us an average of 21 students in JSE, which is within reason. And 4th grade, we have 22 at JSE and 18 at Avis. And in 5th grade, we have 24 and 18 at Avis. Now, those are a little off, but they're not astronomically off. They will balance out over time. And basically, if you look at the 2nd grade issue, it will go to 3rd grade next year, so you have this basically the same thing in 3rd grade, but 4th and 5th, K1, 2, and 3 are your critical years for reading. So they, from my perspective, they need to be a little lower, but 4 and 5 can handle a few more. So my, even though I have a concern about the difference between the two schools, I think within a year or two they balance out. But I do think we need to help our 2nd graders and make sure that they have the time that teachers need to spend with them and put in a 6th teacher. And I think they were all pretty decent this year, except kindergarten was a little high for kindergarten. Oh, you're just giving me the. So I would like to see us address that difference between the kids, because the 2nd grade is basically, well, I say K to 3, but 2nd grade is definitely critical with reading.
So you're suggesting then you wanted to possibly add a teacher to the 2nd grade for 1 year? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well,
Did I
yeah,
hear
because
you
the next
correctly?
the following year you won't have the problem.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I heard
The
you
person would
correctly.
probably need to move. A person would probably need to move to 3rd grade, and remember, you get retirements every year. So even though you have this extra teacher for 1 year, you'll be able to balance it out in the next year because of retirement. It's very rare you don't have any retirement, but that can happen too. I'm not being, but I know that the next 2 years we're at the end of the contract, and they're usually big retirement years, and so you're definitely going to have them. And so if I'm wrong with that, the goal I thought was to go to 7, and I remember talking about it before that we might have a problem for a year or two, and this to me is a problem, and I think we need to do right by our kids.
How factual are these numbers?
The numbers that she's using are from the May enrollment report, so they are the most up to date.
And what's percentage of change maybe from now till next September?
Well, people will move in. You have no
I
idea.
have no idea.
So it could drop, could go up.
And you want to add the kindergarten? 'Cause you did give it to us in the update, but you want to.
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak, but I do.
As of the present time.
I gave you the most recent kindergarten, I think that was last week, right?
Yeah, but I was away, so I didn't have any time to even look at.
Kindergarten is currently at 121, which would be,
That's total school-wide.
that's total in
Avis and
Avis and
JSA.
JSC. That's what's currently fully enrolled or pending enrollment would be 121.
Do we have a breakdown?
We are currently, as of May, in kindergarten at 137.
No, but with this 121, do we know how many JSE and how many Avis at this point, or not yet?
Yes, let me go back to that. It's 96 at JSE and 25 at Avis.
So both of those are reasonable.
What was the Avis
25.
That's for next year.
Yeah. These are all next year,
Well, the 137 was
This current year, yes.
which got moved to 1st grade. So you see that 137 in the 1st grade.
right. Let me ask you this, do all these classrooms have aides? A lot of them have aides, or what's the percentage of,
The aides are primarily supporting special ed classrooms or special ed students.
So they don't have,
that's all? Okay.
So, yeah, I guess I need direction from the board or conversation from the board on what you would like to do.
Well, I know you passed out some information for us, so,
I know what you were, well, let's
Okay.
talk about that first and then I'll explain why I gave you historical. So Mrs. Thomas is proposing we add a teacher in second grade to make sure those numbers are lower. I need direction from the board.
well, my first question is, do you feel that that's necessary? That's the first thing I would ask.
I do not, and I believe and one of the reasons why I gave you historical information is because I know where we've been since I've been here, and so I went back to look where we have, that's what I gave you. I went back to look at where we have been in the past, and we have been at 23 in K and 1 and 2 in the past. I know we've not been, they've not been that high since I've been here. We have occasionally at JSC, but I went back to look historically at where we've been. We have been there, and I understand what Mr. Brungard is asking in terms of aid support. I have offered aid support in the past to some of these higher course class rosters. I don't believe 24 and 25 in second grade is going to be a barrier.
well, remember, they have learning support kids in there too. It is a barrier. You can't spend as much time with 24 kids as you can with 19. And part of your critical years are reading, and it's not outlandish to give them help for a year. We did it when
The learning support have an aide with them?
not individually, unless it's a part of their IEP.
They're just
Has to be pretty.
mainstream,
They have to be
more or
pretty
less?
bad.
Yeah, I'm looking at these numbers too. I see 24, 25 in classes.
Well, can you go through, Dr. Ulmer, each page and point out to the board, like, when you say historically speaking, the numbers for
So
the grades?
I gave you a couple snapshots starting in 16, 17 of old enrollment reports so that you could see where numbers have been. I know one of the other concerns that Mrs. Thomas shared with me is the disparity between the two buildings. And I know we have heard that in the past, which is why I wanted you to see this and where the disparity used to be. I know, and she's not wrong, that there will be a difference in 4 to 6 students across the buildings next year. But it used to be much larger. I mean, if you look through these reports, I'm finding 10 and 12 at times where there were 10 and 12 students difference between the different buildings. The other thing that I had not really, I went back to 16, 17, which is as far back as I could go in updates to pull this. And I didn't go back that far in the past and realize, I know we all heard for many months that we couldn't fit 5 sections of kids per grade level at Jersey Shore Elementary. And it was there in 16, 17. There's 5 sections of every class at Jersey Shore Elementary in 16, 17.
Also remember that, and I'm not knocking these numbers, I agree with these numbers. That was pre-COVID. I'm sorry, but we're still doing some catch-up from COVID. And I think we need to be the fairest to our kids.
Is there any, I'm looking at second grade, JSC and Avis there, 24.8, 18.5. Is there any way we can move like 2, 3 kids, maybe that are on the border of JSC and Avis, that we could ship them to Avis and?
Are you talking from what
neutralize it?
vantage point are you talking from?
Pardon me?
What vantage point are you talking from? Are you talking from this paper or this paper?
The one you handed
Oh,
out.
okay, that's,
If you knock that down 2, 3 students, you're talking 21 both?
yeah, but 2 or 3
Is there somebody
students.
on the borderline there between JSC that's very close that could go to Avis maybe, a family or something, or?
remember,
I'm just throwing it out.
remember, two
Might be a point.
2 or 3 students is 15. Because there's 5 grade levels. There's 5 teachers with that number.
If you take two or three out of the second grade, you have 24.8.
But there's 5 teachers, so you have to take 10 kids, or you have to take 15 kids to drop them down. 2 or 3 doesn't even drop them 1 person. I understand what you're saying. I agree. I understand it totally, but you have a misconception of what that does by taking 2 or 3 students. You have to take them out of each room, which gives you 10 to 15. And there's I can't imagine we have that many.
How did you guys do that in the past? I wasn't on the board when they presented those options to move kids to balance everything. I think that was an option, is that correct?
That, we did that 2 years ago, and
I'm
we
not-
did, I did move students, and so I had a plan in place with parameters on how they got moved. So there was a process in place to do that, and it was based on people that were closest to the border lines and maintaining families. Yes, that did happen.
I'm not saying I agree or disagree, I was just trying to figure out why it was done before. So,
Because when the last time the vote was, it was the vote to keep all schools open and we would equalize the classes. That's why it was done, because that was part of the vote that time. This time we voted to close Salisbury. We didn't address to not equalize the classes or to equalize the classes. And I think if you look at this, some of them are, I have my concerns there, are concerned, but for 1 year, 2 years, it balances out within 2 years. I think you can handle a couple kids, but there's a difference between having 19 kids and 25 kids.
I would like to see more data on this if we could, as far as like kids with IEPs in first grade going into second grade. Mainly that's my concern. And also like what Jesse asked about the curriculum earlier, and the kids that are struggling, like we need to make sure that we are getting our second graders prepared because they will be going into a testing year the following year, so.
Yeah, it can get data on numbers with IEPs, numbers receiving interventions.
Thank you.
Yep. Go for it.
I've said this before in the past, but is that better? Yeah. All right. So when you have students that are coming in from a Head Start, they have like a classroom setting, so they're already allocated to, a certain routine. Then you have children, that have had more of a, free spirit, free range kind of aspect, and so when they come in, it's different. But then the other thing is, when the students come into kindergarten, there are some that have never been assessed. So for the first 3 months, you have chaos because, I don't want to say chaos, it's not chaos, but you have students that, that don't settle very well because they haven't been assessed yet. And it's kind of hard, I think it would be kind of hard to determine, we have 25 students coming into the classroom and verifying, because most of them will not be identified. So we can't assume that there's going to be a problem in the classroom yet or not. So I don't know how you would get the answers kind of like you're looking for. Does that make sense?
I was looking for second grade.
Oh, right.
First graders going into
Second grade. Well, I'm just speaking of, for kindergarten, I guess maybe I'm coming off your question as to, how we're going to set the number of a classroom without knowing those things for the kindergarten. Like that, it's too, you could have a classroom of 19 and have absolutely no idea what all those 19 are going to be.
We try our best to know, but we never do.
I agree. So, I don't know, Mary, are you asking us to put a number in place for how
No,
many
I
classrooms?
have my own ideas, but no.
I was,
I mean, I said I'd like 18 in kindergarten for that very reason that you're stating. In kindergarten, they come from maybe no formal schooling to daycare to a good babysitter to whatever, and you all get thrown in together. But by the time they go to first grade, they've had a whole year of school and they know they know what to expect. And then I like personally 20 for 1, 2, and 3, and 22, then 24. But I'm okay that you have to also, I understand you gotta be flexible too, and maybe 1 year it's 24 and 1 year it's 25. I don't have a big problem with that, as long as we don't keep pushing the envelope and not thinking about what the needs of our children are.
right,
We think about the needs of, programs and stuff that we need as they get older, but this is the most critical time in their lives in school. Sorry, that's just the way I feel.
right. Are we sending anything, or are we, when the newer students when they signed in, did we do anything to suggest, like, if they need assessed, or there's an
Well, we do a whole screening for kindergarten.
Right, wanted to make sure, thank you.
Yeah, but you still take them, right?
Right.
No,
Her point is, we're making sure we understand where they're coming
before
at.
it's 3 months into the school year, that's where the
Oh,
problem is.
There's 2 roles to be in kindergarten, be 5 and have a pulse.
Yep.
B5.
Dr. Elmer, with the current numbers you have for kindergarten, 96 at Jersey Shore, that's 5 teachers? Okay, so that's what,
So we have
19.
something, so we're good there. And if we were to add a teacher in the second grade, do we have a teacher, or would that be a new hire?
We would have to
find one.
hire someone.
We'd have to find one.
I will come back with the data that was requested. If anybody has any more thoughts about this, in the meantime, please let me know. Like if there's something else we didn't talk about, I wrote down IEPs and interventions, but
Is that your 504s you're referring to then?
yeah, or I'm thinking if they're how many are receiving reading special services, and where are they?
Okay.
I do have a question, one more quick question, if I may. So we had the resignation tonight from a first grade teacher. Are we planning on replacing her?
Yes, we have already internally opened that, and there have been some moves throughout the district. We did not yet put it out. I was waiting until this evening when you formally accepted it. I have offered the position up, and some people have requested moves. So I'm waiting. What I talked to the association about was after tonight's resignation is accepted, then I will move forward with the posting.
Then I have one more question. With the hires, potential hires, I guess is what we were looking at. Nobody was on the agenda tonight, but with the update you had sent,
There were 3 under personnel.
Yeah.
there were 3. Okay, so they were hired at B1, B2. Potentially, could we afford another teacher with the savings from retirements and where these
I think
replacements were hired?
budgeted, I could be wrong, but I think we budgeted, depending on what the position was. I see him going for his information. But I think we did not budget for a replacement of where the person was at that left. That makes sense.
So the learning support would be a savings there. No. EOA would know. Learning support would be done. Special ed is budgeted at M1, regular ed is budgeted at.
So I have a couple questions, just after hearing and just thinking on this. My first question is, I mean, to your recollection, since you've been here, Dr. Almer, I looked over some of what you have here. Some of them are different grades, but they're all like K to 5 that you have given to us. Some of them have, 25 and 24 and 23 students in the grades, year after year in some of them. Most of them were at Jersey Shore. To your recollection, do you have a lot of complaints from teachers that there's too many students, that they're not able to teach well, or students aren't grasping because the room is overcrowded with students and they're not able to do their job well?
I would say no. The biggest complaint was the disparity, like, well, I have 24 and that person has 18. But also, to Mrs. Calhoun's point, it could be an issue if I've got a classroom where there are 5 or 6 high-need students in the same place, which we try not to do. But, I mean, if you're in a small building and they're all in the same grade, that's hard to avoid. But no, I would say no, not a widespread complaint.
Okay. So my other question would be, hypothetically, if we hired a teacher for this grade 2, what happens the following year? Like, off the top of your head, where do you plan on placing and utilizing that specific teacher that we hired for that? Most likely, I'm only thinking this through, they'd most likely only probably be certified for certain grades. Most don't have certifications from K to 12, most don't, but just hypothetically speaking, you hire somebody for the elementary, then what do we do with a specific teacher? What are your thoughts?
We would either have to roll them forward with that class into 3rd grade,
Okay.
or we would have to hope there is a retirement to absorb that position.
And that most likely would be there.
I just have one more thing, throwing some numbers around here. I'm looking at 216, 217 total, K through 5. 1084, 1,084 students. I'm looking at Mary's projection right now, 24, 25. 873 students in K through 5.
That's not Mary's
That's the
projection, that's,
difference. Wait a minute.
that's Brian's projection, not mine.
Right. That's 211 students we lost since 2016, 2017.
And we've lost teachers too, so don't forget about that.
We have,
You just lost 5 this year.
we still have the same amount we replaced them, didn't we?
No.
We took 5
172?
positions.
There were 8 in each of the grade levels, now there's 7.
But I'm still talking about K through 5.
That's all
You
I'm
have
talking
five-
about.
You have 5 classes in every year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. Like you say, maybe your redistribution might work too a little bit, because we've lost 211 kids.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers, I think most of the grade levels are down, except for 2nd grade. And I don't know what happened that year, 2 years
I
ago.
remember when you student taught, you had 32 kids in the classroom.
That's high school. High school, I would take 35, 40, I don't care. I don't need to teach them how to read.
Any other discussion on this topic from board members? Mr. Allen?
I just want to verify, because we've talked about this before too, the actual size of the room to the number of students. So there's a certain percentage that you have to have for each student, which I can't remember what it is right off the top of my head right now, but are we within that threshold with
With 25?
25?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say
So
yeah.
how many could we actually have in a classroom?
I have to go back and look at the architectures, but I know when we did those capacity numbers, we used 25. We knew we were well within it in 25. Whether I could go to 27, 28, I can't give you that off the top of my head.
So are all the classrooms the same size is the
Yes.
question?
JSE, I'm pretty sure they're all the same size.
Okay. I'm just, because I know that's a PDE thing, and we gotta be within a certain range there, correct?
I don't know that they are necessarily at Davis, but it has to be close. It's in more of an open concept, so I'm not sure how you measure the.
Right about that, yeah.
I just had some question. Did the specs change since like 2017, 2018, when we had the larger size when they had the 25, the size of the room can only accommodate, did that change
No.
until now? Okay.
Anyone else?
No, if, other than I did say if there's other specific information you want me to gather, please let me know, because I have a list of what I'll gather.
I
Thank
do
you.
want to add one thing, just to be clear, you don't think it's necessary, correct?
No,
You think that our teachers
I
can
think-
handle it right now?
24 and 25 will be just fine.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Ulmer, when we toured the school, we had a conversation with one of the teachers. I won't say her name, but didn't she say like they can, like the elementary can accommodate the needs and they're looking forward to it?
Yes.
I just wanted to add the fact like they're looking forward to it. Like I like that bridge. That's all I wanted to say.
Anyone else? All right. We will move on to courtesy of the floor.
Good evening, Board. Bob Pryor, Mifflin Township. I don't know where to start, but I guess I'll start. I think I said it before, when I was in first grade, we had 34 students or more, one educator, no helpers. We had blackboards, not whiteboards. We had hardback books, not laptops, not iPads. We had pencils, paper tablets. With all the technology and higher salaries and benefits, why are we talking smaller class sizes? Let's just work a little harder.
We're talking about balance.
Well, this is associated with that, madam. Why not reconfigure? Move the higher class size from the elementaries into the middle school, and the middle school into the high school. Like I said before, what are you doing with the high school? It was designed for over 1,430 students, and we have almost half that. So what are you doing with all that extra space? Reconfigure the classes. Other districts done it. I haven't heard any complaints. I haven't seen anything bad in the newspaper about that. Apparently it's working out. And another thing, as far as these overseas trips and out-of-country trips, I'm assuming immunizations and passports were included in that estimate of $3,000. I'm assuming that. What do we get? Was security considered? Who is going to protect those kids? Will the Panama Security Police or Army protect them? Remember, we're living in a world where Americans have a target on their back. I would not want my child or my grandchildren or great-grandchildren going to Panama, especially right now. Why not the USA? Let's teach them something about the USA. And I don't know for Jersey Shore if this is the first time we're talking sending kids out of the country. I know other classes or schools have done it. Not real largely, but they've done it. But that's my concerns. I just think money doesn't grow on trees, and sending kids overseas and to Panama, there's a lot of bad stuff down there. That's not including people. So I just want you to consider that and do something with the high school. There's room there. Move a grade in there. Common sense. This is the common sense era now, not the no sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor.
Ray Beerley, Pyatt Township. I want to thank Mrs. Thomas for the work that she did on class size and the the thorough evaluation that she presented to the board and for all of us to hear. First of all, number one, as a retired educator, I can tell you with confidence that there is a huge difference between teaching 19 students and 25 students. And I was at the secondary level where you don't have the runny noses, you don't have the kids fighting like you do in elementary classrooms. And to suggest that there's no difference between 25 and 19 to me is well, I'll say inaccurate. Number two, developing strong reading skills at an early age is critical to these kids' success K through 12. I know for a fact that I had students in my 10th grade biology class who unfortunately were reading at 5th grade levels. Through no fault of their own, through no fault of their teachers, that was just their reality. And anything that we can do to make sure our kids are reading at grade levels, we have to do that. We don't have an option. That's what we have to do. That's your job as a board of directors. And number three, it seems like the thing that was most concerning is how much is it going to cost to add another teacher? Well, how much is it worth to have your children able to read? How much value do you place on that as a board of directors? I think that's something you need to think about. But let's think outside the box a little bit. How much would it cost? Let's pick a big number. Let's say, $100,000 for that teacher. Next year, I just looked at your projected fund balance in the next year's budget, is going to be over $10 million at the end of next year. That teacher would cost you less than 1% of your fund balance. And if you don't think getting those kids to be able to read proficiently is worth less than 1% of your fund balance that is put aside for instances like this, then I'm sorry, you should not be serving on a board of education. Thank you. Oh, hey, those kids at the beginning, all those girls, that was great. 100 years ago, I was 16 when Title IX came in, and there was like practically nothing for girls in sports. I grew up playing football with the kids, boys in my neighborhood, and I would have loved to have the opportunities they have. And boy, to be able to achieve at the levels that they've achieved, that is incredible, and we should be so proud. I know I'm so proud of what those girls did for us.
Thank you, Mrs. Beerley.
Michelle, before you adjourn, this was at our desk, and
Sorry.
that's okay.
I meant to point out, you do have a copy, only because I provided it to you electronically, but I wanted you to have a paper copy of the report that is part of my performance objective.
Thank you.
That's why you have it, sorry. I didn't say that.
Thank you.
Under my report, thank you.
So we're going to adjourn the meeting and adjourn into an executive session where no further business will be conducted.